Welcome to Misguided, the audio edition. I am Matthew Facciani, and I'll be your guide through each chapter of the book, along with some updates now that the book has been out for about a year. Let's begin with the introduction. Imagine you have an old friend named John. You went to high school with him and remember him being a friendly and curious person. You haven't spoken to him in a while, but you stay connected through social media, occasionally seeing pictures of his dog and his travels that pop up in your feed. Then one day, you notice John has shared a link to a video claiming the Earth is flat. You scratch your head. You wonder, how can your friend believe something that is so clearly untrue? That question is the whole reason I wrote this book. John is fictional, but his story is not far-fetched at all. There's a 2018 documentary called Behind the Curve that follows real people who believe the Earth is flat, and what's striking about it is how much their belief runs on community, the meetups, the conferences, the friendships. For a lot of them, the belief is almost the price of admission to a group that makes them feel seen. So how did John get here? He may have started out watching a few conspiracy videos online, whether he sought them out himself or the algorithm showed them to him. John always liked to think of himself as a contrarian and felt a sense of pride in believing something others didn't. That personality quirk led him deeper into conspiracy videos and online discussion groups. He may have found out that a local Flat Earth Society was having a meetup nearby and decided to check it out. At the meeting, he met several friendly people and had a genuinely positive experience. These social connections made him want to attend a conference a few hours' drive away, and these social components, the friendships, the belonging, the identity reinforcement, helped reinforce his Flat Earth beliefs, not as an afterthought, but as a central part of how those beliefs took hold. That leads us to the central argument of my entire book. Misinformation isn't only a knowledge or education problem. At its core, it's also a social problem. We are wired to belong, to connect, and to protect the identities that give our lives meaning. And those same beautiful, necessary instincts are exactly what make us vulnerable to believing things that are not true. This topic isn't just abstract for me, it's also personal. After college, I started a PhD in neuroscience. I was looking at neuroimaging data on how the brain processes information. But as I worked on my PhD, I kept running into a disconnect between what the science actually said and how it got communicated outside of academia. That sparked my interest in science communication. But there was one event that really changed the course of my career, and it happened in 2014 in a hearing room behind the South Carolina State House. I testified against a bill that would remove reproductive rights based on a claim about fetal pain that the science did not support. I came armed with peer-reviewed papers, I printed copies for every legislator, and it did not matter. One of them told me that my testimony was very impressive, but then asked if I had seen a heavily dramatized movie about the issue, treating an emotionally charged advocacy film as comparable to the peer-reviewed evidence I had just handed him. Now, I already knew about confirmation bias and political bias, but watching people who write laws flatly dismiss the evidence in front of them was a career-changing experience. I walked out realizing that evidence, by itself, can be no match for identity when an issue is wrapped up in who people are. So, to make a very long story short, I switched fields, from neuroscience to sociology, to study political bias and misinformation directly. I also bring up my own story here, because if we're going to talk about identities, it's helpful to reflect on our own, and how they may influence us. Over my life, I've been religious and non-religious, liberal and conservative, a bad high school student and a good college one, a jock and a nerd, a neuroscientist and a sociologist. Having genuinely held the views of groups I no longer belong to gives me something that I think we badly need more of, a little bit of empathy and some perspective taking for how reasonable people end up in very different places. So what is this book going to actually do? A few things. It's going to explain why, psychologically and sociologically, false beliefs take hold and spread using our understanding of identity as the foundation. It's going to use real case studies such as COVID, the anti-vaccine movement, social media, and it's going to offer evidence-based tools for having better conversations, for spotting manipulation, and for noticing when we are the ones being misguided. Here's the framing I want to carry through the whole book, and it's right there in the title, Misguided. I don't think most people who believe false things are fools or liars. I think they're guided by their need to belong, by their identities, by the people around them, toward conclusions that feel true because they're socially useful. Two people on opposite ends of the political spectrum are running the exact same software, protect the identity, protect the connection. I'll borrow an image from a book that had a strong impact on me as a college student, The Evolving Self. The author writes about the eagle, this magnificent creature free to soar and take in the whole horizon across the skies, and yet its eyes are almost always pointed down at the ground, scanning for rodents in the shadows. The parallel to human psychology has always stayed with me. We have these extraordinary minds capable of contemplating the universe, and we spend so much of our attention stuck in narrow, defensive, fearful patterns. This book is my attempt to help us look up, to understand the forces pulling our gaze to the ground, so we can choose a little more often to look up and see the horizon. Okay, that's the introduction to the book. Now let me add my author's update. As I record this, the book has been out for about a year, and already so much has happened. I submitted the last major revisions of my book on January 15th, 2025. About a week later, I learned that my position at Notre Dame had been eliminated because of the federal funding cuts. It was a strange moment to have just finished a book about misinformation, media literacy, and trust, and then immediately watch the political and funding landscape around that work become much more uncertain. I felt like I had gotten the book out just in time. The work I had been doing was focused on media literacy, helping people recognize misleading and false information, including in places where misinformation research is badly needed and understudied, such as the Global South. And misinformation is a fundamentally global problem. Information doesn't stop at the borders. I won't dwell on it because plenty has already been written about the broader political attacks on science and research in the United States since the start of 2025, and plenty more will be. But I wanted to share this update because it connects directly to the book. Misinformation research itself has come under sustained attack in the United States. And here's the thing, I wasn't even studying anything political. I was building media literacy tools that teach people to recognize misleading and false information, and we didn't even use partisan examples. The main educational game we were working on used apolitical news stories, health scams, and financial scams as examples. Right before my job was eliminated, I was working on how to teach people how to recognize AI-generated videos and how and why people come to trust information from AI chatbots. It was a bumpy road after that email. The job was cut with no warning, and looking for another position studying misinformation in this political climate was extremely hard. So I cobbled together various things over this past year, adjuncting college courses, consulting, and growing my own newsletter and podcast. I also was looking for funding for the science communication nonprofit I work with, the Evidence Collective, and I'll share more about that later. I did land a short-term research contract with Georgetown as part of their Lancet Commission project on health, faith, and trust, which I'll also come back to when we get to the chapters of health and trust. Thankfully, I recently found a wonderful job as a researcher at the Yale School of Public Health, where I study how and why people trust health information and help run science communication training on campus. Science communication is going to stay at the center of my work, and it's a big reason why I wanted to make an audio version of this book in the first place. My publisher couldn't find a way to make it happen, so I decided to make it happen myself. And honestly, in some ways, this version is better. It dives straight into the main points and comes with updates now that the book has been out for about a year. My book was written for a broad audience, but it does go deep into the science because I wanted enough evidence to back up every claim. This audio series is a way to get to those core insights without getting bogged down in all the details. The details are still there in the print and digital editions if you want to go deeper. Now, as we wrap up, here's the thing I wanted to keep coming back to. Remember John and what actually pulled him in. It wasn't just the false claim itself. It was the community, identity, and sense of belonging that formed around it. That need for community lives in all of us, and it isn't the enemy. It is one of the best parts about being human. The whole point of Misguided is that we can understand that pull instead of being ruled by it, and maybe even turn it towards something good. I'm really excited to share this project with you, and I hope you enjoy the journey. Let's dive into Chapter 1.